What's up everyone, this is Miss Peer Editor. Welcome to my professional development series where I'll give you a head start on developing your personal brand through written communication. You can use the skills gained from this series to apply for jobs and internships, build your network, and reach out to others to find career opportunities. Make sure to subscribe to see all of my videos in this series. Today, we're learning how to write well-developed bullet points on your resume that will help you stand out. So what is a resume? We can see that this is perhaps a resume that you might see from James Bond, and your own resume will be a way for you to explain your skills and background when you're applying for jobs, leadership positions, or any other specific roles. So a resume is a one-page document that demonstrates your job and internship experience, if you have any, your extracurriculars such as organizations, clubs, volunteer work, accomplishments including awards and projects, statistics such as your GPA or your standardized test scores, and skills including technical and soft skills, as well as languages and any other specific skills in your field of interest. You'll use section headers in your resume to distinguish these specific parts, but remember that there is no one-size-fits-all resume. They often vary based on the industry that you're in. And in the description below this video, I've actually placed websites where you can find customizable resume templates for different industries, so check those out to see what resume template works best for you. But what's common across all resumes is that you will need to include bullet points describing your contribution to a specific leadership position, role, or any other type of position. And writing great bullet points will help your reader of that resume see what sets you apart, understand your impact, and remember you in the future, especially if that reader has to read through stacks and stacks of other resumes. So here's a blueprint that you can use to write well-developed bullet points for your resume. You'll begin with an action verb, include a task, and then talk about the impact that you've made. But these three parts don't necessarily need to go in this order, as long as you begin with that strong action verb. So let's look at a couple of examples of resume bullet points using this blueprint. And let's say that I wanted to talk about a scientific experiment that I did on my resume. Here's a bullet point for that. Conducted a controlled experiment in home garden over 60 days to determine the effect of compost versus bat guano in soil on biomass of spinach plants. So the action verb is the word conducted, and notice how I didn't include the word I or any other personal pronouns. I just started right away with that action verb. And this middle section is the task because I'm explaining the controlled experiment that I'm doing. And the impact is this last final piece where I explain the effect that I'm trying to determine based on this experiment. Here's another example where I am a student journalist who's writing a story for my school newspaper. Interviewed student participants in the campus climate change march to write a news story which generated 3,500 hits on the University Weekly website. So this is the action verb, this is the task, and this last part is the impact. And one thing that is really good about this impact part is that I've included a concrete number. So it's always great to include numbers or quantifiable results in your resume bullet point because they just show even more detail. And just make sure that those numbers are completely accurate and you can back them up with evidence. And in addition to including the number of 3,500 hits, I've also included the name of my school newspaper's website, which is the University Weekly. So, for example, a reader of my resume could even look on that website and perhaps find my article. So again, including all these different details will be very valuable in my resume as a whole. This next resume bullet point talks about a tutoring experience. So it says, taught grammar and reading comprehension strategies to 20 elementary school students, boosting English assessment scores by 36% on average. Here's the action verb, here's the task, and here is the impact. And again, I've used a specific number and a quantifiable result. In this last bullet point, we're talking about a marketing position. So it says, designed Instagram posts, digital playbill, and auditorium banner to promote Little Shop of Horrors school musical. Here's the action verb, here's the task, and here's the impact. And in this bullet point, I haven't included any specific numbers, but that's okay because I explained that my overall purpose and impact was to promote this school musical through my own graphic design and social media skills. Here are my top tips for writing awesome resume bullet points. In terms of content, be truthful and do not exaggerate. Resume readers, interviewers, and recruiters often ask questions about specific bullet points on your resume, so if you have exaggerated, it will become immediately evident when you're not able to back up what you've written. Refer to a list of powerful action verbs. I actually found a list of action verbs that's separated into categories based on skill online, and I included a link to that list in the description box below this video. Make sure to check that out so that you can include those verbs in your resume. Include numbers and data to quantify your impact. If you do include numbers or statistics, just ensure that you have evidence to back up those numbers. Include keywords from a specific application in your resume to show that you have the required skill set for a position or a role that you're applying to. So many people actually make different resumes based on different applications. And for example, if you're applying to a role that requires you to have graphic design skills, you could include the words graphic design in your resume, or even talk about different graphic design software that you're skilled in, such as Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator. So using those keywords will show that you have the skills that are required for that position. In terms of style, do not use the word I or personal pronouns throughout your resume. Just include those action verbs as mentioned before. Be careful when including industry jargon and ask yourself, are you applying to a role within the same industry as your experiences? So for example, if you had a science background and did lab work in one of your experiences, but now you're applying to a role in finance, you should still be able to explain your scientific research to a finance recruiter so that they can understand you without any difficulty. And in that case, it would probably be wise not to include industry-related scientific jargon. But if you're applying to something within the same industry or field as your experiences, such as another scientific research role, it makes sense to use jargon when applying for that position because it may be likely that the person who's reading your resume will understand you clearly. Long story short, don't always assume that your reader will understand the technical terms that you include in your resume. If you're still active in a role, use the present tense. If you are no longer in a role, use the past tense. In terms of the aesthetic of your resume, write at least 2 bullet points per heading. For example, if I had an internship at a company, I would write at least 2 bullet points to describe what I did in that internship. Try to fill out each line of your bullet points until you reach the margin, and this is just to help you ensure that there are no sparse parts in your resume and to make sure that your resume looks as uniform as possible. Now I have a couple of personal font recommendations, but the font and a lot of the different aspects of the aesthetic of your resume are really up to you. I personally recommend using Times New Roman or Georgia in terms of the font, and using 10 to 12 point type. Comment down below with anything you'd like to know about writing a great resume, and if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the bell to receive notifications whenever I make a new video, and make sure to stay tuned for the rest of this professional development series.